I am taking one for the team today. I might die with the amount of calories I'm probably about to eat. Anyway, Caffe Panna, pack 3. We have 6 flavors. We're gonna knock them all out because Monday is your last day to order. If it doesn't sell out by then, I'm here to let you know if it's worth it. Even though she just released a fall pack, pack 3 has been pretty stellar. Maybe, spoiler alert here, maybe not the most loving flavors that I prefer, but the execution is on point with most of them. So we're gonna start with butter tart. So I've had well over 700, probably near 750 pints. And here's a first for me, raisin ice cream. I've had raisins in my ice cream, but never raisin ice cream. And this one uses both golden and black raisins. It has a cinnamon streusel swirl and buttery shortbread. So this one's gonna get interesting real quick. The skins of the raisins are torn and pulled apart from being mixed into the ice cream. So while the base is very creamy, it almost gives it, I'm gonna call it a chew, a small chew from those skin pieces. It's not off-putting, it's just different. The raisin flavor in the base isn't that strong. It's kind of more of an aftertaste because there's so much of that delicious cream. But there were a ton of whole raisins right under the lid. And there's a little more mixed throughout. There's not a ton. You can see a black one here. I'm not coming across too many golden ones. But they have this awesome, thick chew from being frozen in the ice cream. And the golden ones they're more plumpy, they're juicier, even a little sweeter, but with all the other stuff going on in the pint, it's really hard to tell a difference between the two. The swirl, and how is this for swirl, is basically a cinnamon caramel swirl. Don't expect a lot of streusel, but the flavor is incredibly pronounced, both the cinnamon and the caramel. The cinnamon it's bold, it's in your face, cinnamon spicy. The caramel, on the other hand, it is a little sweeter and a little buttery, but it is incredibly burnt, like a very burnt caramel that you need a special palate for. I think the shortbread is where you get most of the buttery flavor from. It's minimally sweet, mainly floury. The texture though, I honestly don't see how they hold up so well. You can see there's 3 or 4 here. I got a bunch on my spoon, but they're almost like a soft crouton. They're thick, but yet it's still a light, chewy bite. Great execution for sure, and you're gonna hear me say this a lot throughout the pack review. But my biggest complaint is that cinnamon caramel swirl or cinnamon streusel swirl. It almost has too much bite. Nonetheless, still a fun and very interesting scoop. 8 out of 10. Next up, the Anna, or is it Anna? This is a pomegranate and berry kissed ice cream with fruity Omano chocolate shards. This one requires a very particular palate. There's no other way to say it. Caffe Panna nailed the pomegranate flavor here. Now I'm gonna be honest, initially on the first few spoonfuls, I didn't get much sweetness at all, but now that I'm digging in a second time, I'm getting some sweetness on the tail end. It starts and it's mainly tangy, it's tart, it's sharp, even a little sour. It definitely has some punch to it. It's almost like when you bite into a pomegranate seed, or you can even relate it to like a uncooked cranberry. It's a very exotic fruit. Then you have the spicy Omano chocolate, which brings out the flavor of the ice cream even more. Not to mention, the chocolate is already extremely dark, it's bitter, and it's spicy. The little shards give each spoonful, literally, because the chocolate is everywhere, it gives it a very crispy bite. This is a flavor that will vary widely depending on your taste buds. I personally would like a little more sweetness because it's just a lot of powerful flavors meshed into one. 7 out of 10. Fair warning on these next 2 reviews. I really enjoy pistachios, the raw nut. However, I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to pistachio ice cream. So, the pint I was least looking forward to in this pack is pistachio cardamom almond, which is a toasted Sicilian almond brittle in spiced Sicilian pistachio ice cream. And the base is very true to its name. I gotta hand it to him. The pistachio is already an earthy, even though its finish is sweet, type of nut. But the spiced, aka cardamom, builds on that even more with its smoky, citrusy flavor. Very well executed, most certainly. It's just not for me. Here's my issue with the almond brittle. It's separated, meaning I'm getting bites of almonds right here, and I'm also getting bites of brittle, chunks of each. Now the almonds are perfectly nutty, crunchy, and the brittle is gritty, crispy, sugary sweet. So individually, they're great, but I need the two together. Even though the almond brittle was separated, it was still sort of a saving grace for my personal flavor preference. Pistachio ice cream fans, though, will have a field day with this. 6.5 out of 10. Created by the man himself, VJ. You all know him as @IceCreamAddiction on Instagram. If you don't, go give him a follow now. He's very well known in the ice cream game, and he's probably Caffe Panna's #1 supporter. You can search his hashtags, ICA for ice cream addiction, so hashtag ICA Caffe Panna, and you will see well over 200 posts from all the times he's visited Caffe Panna. But he went hard with this one, and that's Bronte Baklava. So it's a honey ice cream with Sicilian pistachio swirl, toasted and salted Bronte pistachios, and nutty baklava chunks. I'm now realizing that I don't know if it's Bronte, forgive me on the pronunciation. Nonetheless, there is a lot going on here. The base is low key, which I think is great because most of the time you hear of honey bases, it goes way overboard with the sweetness. This is awesome because the honey gives you a little sweeter than usual cream flavor. Here's the kicker though. You still get your actual honey in some parts of the pint because it's coated around the pistachios. And I'm talking this thick, sappy coating that is much sweeter than the base. So you want your honey sweetness, you're getting it here in that pistachio coating. And coating some of those pistachios in honey was a great idea because some of those pistachios still have the skin on them, which you can see an example right here, that reddish purplish skin, which is very acidic, like extremely acidic tasting. So what better way to balance it out than with the honey? After you get past that skin though, you're left with a firm but chewy pistachio that has a mildly sweet nutty flavor. While we're on that pistachio train, let's talk about the pistachio swirl. I'm gonna show you a little bit of it at the top. Can't put my spoon there because it focuses at the top up here. But there was a good bit of it, like a chunk of it right under the lid. And it's almost like a paste, a hardened paste, because it does come up all together unless you break it with your spoon. However, after that one chunk at the top, I'm not getting any more. Easily the least abundant mixing. So it's not really fair to judge the flavor, but it did have a sweeter pistachio flavor than compared to the nuts. My wife and I vacationed to Greece last year for our anniversary, so I've had legit baklava, and this is right there with it. What blows my mind is how well it holds up. Most of the time it's stale and it falls apart, but then again, they're not Caffe Panna. This is soft, but still flaky from the phyllo dough. It's even a little crunchy from the nuts and also a little gooey from the syrup that holds it together. The flavor, it's just what you would expect. Jam-packed with honey, dough, and even a fair amount of butter. The combination is just phenomenal. This is a game changer, and you can tell it was put together by someone who knows exactly what they're doing. The combination, it's incredible. Honey, baklava, pistachios, they all go together. The only problem is a pistachio swirl was mentioned, so despite it having perfect flavor without it, I have to hold that against the pint. 9.5 out of 10. Now for another fairly straightforward pint because it only has two components to it, and that's butterscotch, which is a butterscotch pudding base with a brownie swirl. And unfortunately, this one is kind of all over the place. First off, this is a must when it comes to tempering. You have to let it sit out longer than usual because I did my normal tempering process and the base was a little icy, but since I've been reviewing all these pints, it's sat out even longer now. And I'm not getting that icy anymore, so please let it temper longer than usual so you get the full effect of the creaminess. Now let's dig into the flavor. The butterscotch pudding base, it's spot on. What you need to know is caramelized sugar, butter, and molasses or dark brown sugar. What's even better though is that it's mild in flavor. What I mean is it's noticeable, anybody could identify it, but it's not bursting with flavor, which is great because sometimes, like with those butterscotch candy, it's just overwhelming and too much and everything seems artificial. Now the brownie swirl is amazing. I'm partial to brownies, yes, I know, but this stuff is crazy good and it's super thick with a bunch of seeds. It's like you made your brownie batter and instead of throwing it in the oven, you just swirled it around in the ice cream. Like so gooey and thick, I'm having trouble licking it off my spoon. Very rich fudge brownie flavor. It's that easy, you all know the flavor. The problem is it's so chocolatey, sweet, and rich that it overpowers the butterscotch base with ease. While the flavors were pretty good and the iciness eventually literally tempered away, this just doesn't do much for me. I feel like it's missing another element. I do have some pointers when scooping this one though. Get a little bit of that brownie swirl with a big old spoonful of the butterscotch for a much better flavor mashup. 6 out of 10. All right, last, but certainly not least, and I might die, death by chocolate, we have chocolate to the 5th, which is a chocolate ice cream with pieces of soft chocolate cake, Panna chippers, which are chocolate chip cookies, or it's really like a soft dough, so chocolate chip cookie dough, Amano chocolate shards, and a salty fudge swirl for all the chocoholics out there, obviously. Now there's a little bit of disappointment in this, hold your horses, nothing in terms of flavor, but more of the eye appeal and me breaking this flavor down. So as you can see, nothing really stands out. I mean, besides the chocolate chip cookie dough you can see, but everything else is kind of just mashed together. So starting with the base, many people said it was a dark chocolate ice cream. I really don't think it is. I'm getting a fair amount of a rich sweetness for sure. It may be a few bitter properties like a true cocoa taste, but it's certainly no milk chocolate, but it's definitely not dark. We'll call it somewhere in the middle because it does have a fair amount of sweetness. Between the chocolate cake and the fudge swirl, you really have a hard time telling a difference in the flavor. They're both just really rich, like almost like a blackout chocolate flavor. So you can see a bit of the fudge swirl right here. There's a pool of it. It's thick and gooey, not as thick as that brownie swirl in butterscotch, but it's definitely got some gooey density to it. As for the cake, dense chunks that are soft and chewy. They're dense, but they're still light. You can bite right through them. Now, what does stand out a lot, and easily was the most mix-in, I'm hoping these don't fall out, there's huge cookie dough chunks. Like, it's a massive cookie dough chunk just coated in chocolate. And the flavor stands out tremendously because there actually isn't that much chocolate, although it includes chocolate. What stands out the most is a very buttery, and I'm talking incredibly buttery, and a brown sugar flavor. The chocolate chips are big within the cookie dough, so they have this crunch to them, but overall the flavor isn't that chocolatey. The 5th and final component are those Amano chocolate shards, and there's no way you'll ever be able to see them, but just like the pomegranate flavor, they're thin chocolate flakes. So every bite, you know exactly when they're in your spoonful because when you bite into them, it's just a thin, light, ultra crispy bite. And on top of that, their flavor is much welcomed again and stands out despite being small and thin because they're very dark, they're a little spicy, but most of all, they're pretty bitter. I do think I saved the best for last. Chocolate to the 5th edges out Bronte Baklava's 9.5 just by a hair, but this is not perfect. I will say there is an unbalanced ratio of mix-in. Specifically for me, it was a ton of cookie dough, almost too much at times. However, there are a plethora of other mix-ins that provide varying textures and flavors that are all really good. The bottom line is, this is a scoop you don't want to miss, especially if you're a chocoholic. 9.5 out of 10. In summary, I got chocolate and junk all over my shirt. I don't know if you can see it, but do I recommend this pack? Of course I do. You know, maybe all the flavors don't necessarily appeal to your taste buds. Like I had a few that just, you know, they're not my type of flavor. However, I've had enough ice cream that I know they're very well executed. And the company as a whole, Caffe Panna, is doing nothing but getting better with each pack. So if you're on the fence, I suggest you go, try it, buy it. It's definitely worth your money. There's only a few packs left, probably under 20 at this point, that are available through Monday. So if you're on the edge, go for it. Do it now before it's too late. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys when the fall pack drops.